But now, pass to the boy Tony. I'm Tony Jay from Thailand and play Deja. Tony Jay is a legendary figure in the world of martial arts cinema, earning his place among the greatest with his groundbreaking role in Ong Bak, Y Warrior in 2003. This film changed the genre and solidified his reputation. However, recently fans were stunned by alarming reports claiming that Tony Jaa was facing a life sentence in prison. How did he end up in such a dire situation? The deeper you look, the more bizarre the story becomes. Stick with me until the end and you'll understand how one of the most adored action stars ended up facing such an extreme turn of events. #Tony Jaa's legal struggles. Tony Jaa found himself embroiled in a bitter legal fight with Sahamongkol Film International, the company that helped launch his career but also controlled every aspect of his professional life. While an injury can be devastating for an action star, a bad contract can be just as destructive. Back in 2003, when Jaa was just starting to make a name for himself, he signed a 10-year contract with Sahamongkol. On the surface, this seemed normal, but the fine print was a nightmare. The contract effectively bound him to the company, requiring their approval for any outside work. To make matters worse, he was being paid a meager $1,600 a month. Imagine starring in blockbuster films like Ong Bak, but earning less than a regular office worker while the studio rakes in millions. He was stuck in a deal that made it almost impossible for him to pursue opportunities beyond Thailand. At first, Jaa likely didn't think much of it. Sahamongkol had made him a star, after all. But as his international fame soared, his options began to feel more and more limited. Directors from Hollywood, Hong Kong, and China were eager to work with him. But Sahamongkol blocked every opportunity, refusing to negotiate or let him take on new roles. It was as if they kept him on a leash, telling him, "You work for us and only us." The frustration mounted, especially for someone once hailed as the next big action star who had put Y on the map in Hollywood. But now Tony Jaa was making headlines for a very different reason: a life sentence in prison. ########## A disastrous contract renewal. As Jaa's 10-year contract neared its end in 2013, he thought he was finally free. But Sahamongkol had other plans. They claimed his contract had been automatically renewed for another 10 years, extending until 2023. And here's where things get even shadier. The renewal notice wasn't sent to Jaa but to his estranged sister, who lived in a completely different part of Thailand. She signed it on his behalf. And just like that, Jaa found himself under contract for another decade, without his consent. Naturally, Jaa was furious. He called the situation business slavery and sought legal counsel. His lawyers argued that the contract had expired in 2013 and that the renewal was invalid. What followed was a full-blown legal battle. Then came Fast and Furious 7, a game-changing moment for Jaa. This was his Hollywood debut, a chance to break free from being just a Thai action star. But Sahamongkol wasn't having it. They claimed he had no right to accept the role, held a press conference to denounce him, and sued him, Universal Pictures, and United International Pictures for a staggering $49 million. Their argument? They'd spent a fortune making Jaa a star, and now that he was making money, they wanted a cut. They even demanded 7.5% interest. Lawsuits like this can take years, but Sahamongkol didn't stop at suing. They actively worked to block Jaa's career. In 2015, they obtained a court order to stop Fast and Furious 7 from being released in Thailand. Can you imagine a global hit being legally delayed in Jaa's home country because of a contract dispute? And it didn't end there. The lawsuit jeopardized his other films like Skin Trade, his collaboration with Dolph Lundgren, and SPL, Time for Consequences. Another film, A Man Will Rise, was left unfinished and remains so to this day. Meanwhile, his 2013 movie Tom Yum Goong 2 bombed at the box office, in part because Jaa refused to promote it amid the legal drama. His career was falling apart, both in Thailand and internationally. Hashtag the unexpected turn. Just when things seemed hopeless, something unexpected happened. In July 2015, Saha Mongkol dropped the $50 million lawsuit. The details behind this decision remain unclear, but Jha later released a statement saying, "With the assistance of all relevant parties, Saha Mongkol Film and I were able to settle our differences. We have therefore decided to end all legal actions against one another." It seemed that a deal was struck, and just like that, Tony Jha was free. But the damage had already been done. These legal battles cost him valuable years of his career, years he could have used to further solidify his position as a global martial arts icon. Hashtag the cost of legal battles. Although these legal issues never led to jail time, they significantly hindered Jha's career. The years following Ong Bak and The Protector should have been the peak of his career, with international projects pouring in. But instead, Jha was consumed by lawsuits and contract restrictions. And by the time everything was settled, he had lost precious years. In an industry where timing is everything, that setback was devastating. Fortunately, Tony Jha managed to rebuild his career. He went on to work in international films, secured bigger roles, and finally gained the career freedom he'd been fighting for. But his story is a warning to rising stars everywhere. In the entertainment industry, the biggest battles aren't always on screen. They happen behind closed doors, in legal offices and over contracts that can make or break a career. And if there's one takeaway from Jha's ordeal, it's this: no matter how talented you are, a bad deal can turn your dream job into a nightmare. Tony Jha's story is not just one of triumph. It's also a cautionary tale of the hidden struggles that can accompany fame and success. It's a reminder that the real challenges can come from unexpected places, and even the brightest stars can face the darkest moments. Even after making his return and trying to move forward, things didn't get any easier for Tony Jha. Saha Mongkol took control of the film, and Prakya Pinkayu, the director of the first Ong Bak, stepped in to complete the project. To make matters worse, the studio decided to split Ong Bak 2 into two separate films, Ong Bak 2 and Ong Bak 3, in an attempt to recoup their investment. The result? It destroyed the flow of the story, leaving both films feeling disjointed and unfinished. For Jha, this was a devastating creative loss. What was supposed to be his passion project, his directorial debut, was now out of his hands. The pressure became too much. He had already endured financial struggles, industry politics, and a grueling production process that drained him physically and emotionally. In May 2010, he made a bold decision. He walked away from the film industry entirely and became a Buddhist monk. After everything he had been through, it was a shocking but understandable choice. He needed peace and spiritual reflection rather than more chaos. Though he didn't stay in the monastery forever, when he returned to acting, his struggles weren't over. His contract with Saha Mongkol still tied him down, limiting his opportunities and preventing him from fully capitalizing on his global fame. While he remains a legend in the martial arts world, his story also serves as a reminder that success isn't always as glamorous as it appears. Tony Jha spent years sculpting his body into one of Hollywood's most formidable fighters. But now he's fighting for something much more important, his life. Tony Jha's alleged imprisonment. Lately, social media has been abuzz with rumors that the legendary Ong Bak star is serving a life sentence in prison. Sounds unbelievable, right? But for many, these posts have caused a lot of confusion. And in today's age where misinformation spreads like wildfire, it's no surprise. However, let's set the record straight. Tony Jha is not in prison, never has been, and certainly isn't serving a life sentence. So where did this bizarre rumor come from? Like many celebrity rumors, it started with a complete misunderstanding. It all traces back to Killzone 2, also known as SPL2, A Time for Consequences, a 2015 film where Jha played a prison guard. The plot revolves around an undercover cop who is caught, double-crossed, and thrown into a Thai prison under a false identity. Somehow people confused this fictional storyline with Jaw's real life, and the rumors spiraled from there. To make things worse, when Jaw stepped away from the limelight for a while and even became a Buddhist monk, the speculation grew. In Thailand, it's common for men to spend some time as monks, but the internet twisted this into something it wasn't. Did he quit acting for good? Is he running from something? Those whispers evolved into the absurd claim that he must be in prison. A quick fact check would clear all of this up. There's absolutely no evidence that Tony Jaa has ever been in jail. No news articles, no trusted sources, nothing. His IMDb page is filled with upcoming projects, and major media outlets are talking about his next films, not a supposed jail sentence. If he were actually in prison, don't you think it would be breaking news?